The land of Islay, in the Inner Hebrides of Scotland, has been fought over for as long as the island has existed. The first unknown tribes were defeated by the Gaels in the 6th century. They would then form the kingdom of Dal Riata, which withstood Pictish and Norse invasions for quite some time. But eventually, Dal Riata would fall to a great Norse invasion, and in the 9th century, Islay would become part of the Kingdom of the Isles, and the Norse settlers would pledge the island to the Crown of Norway. A century later, the Isles would claim their freedom as an independent kingdom. This angered Magnus, King of Norway, who would send a great force to reclaim his lost island kingdom. This resulted in 200 years of war between the Kingdom of the Isles, Norway, and the new United Scotland. Eventually, the fighting would stop, and in 1266, King Alexander III of Scotland would form a treaty with the Kingdom of the Isles. They would become a semi-independent authority under the rule of the Scottish Crown. The descendants of those who rebelled against the Norwegian rule were now known as Clan MacDonald. And in 1336, John MacDonald of Islay adopted the title Dominus Insularum Lord of the Isles. John and his descendants ruled the islands for many years, until in 1462, where he made the great mistake of allying with Edward IV, King of England, in the hope of conquering Scotland once and for all. Unfortunately for the MacDonalds, this was at the onset of the English War of the Roses, and King Edward had more to worry about than Scotland. King James of Scotland would learn of the MacDonalds' treason, and demanded that the Lord of the Isles forfeit all titles and land to the Scottish Crown. Islay and the rest of the Isles were now officially Scottish land, and in the years to come, King James would grant those loyal to the throne the land and estates upon the island. This is how Clan MacLean came to rule the island under the Scottish king. But in 1545, due to their renewed service to the crown, some of the MacDonald holdings on Islay would be restored, and this is where our story takes place. War had once again come to the Isles. The MacLeans were furious about losing their land to the traitorous MacDonalds, who saw the land as their birthright. The Dubh Sith and the Battle of Traigh Ghruinneart. In the year 1598, the vast majority of the small island of Islay was held by the recently reinstated Clan MacDonald. This was very much to the annoyance of Sir Lachlan Moore, chief of Clan MacLean. Lachlan had married the sister of Angus, chief of Clan MacDonald, in a bid to halt hostilities between the clans. And as part of his sister's dowry, Angus offered a large stretch of land called the Rins of Islay. But when it came time to claim his new lands, Lachlan had found that it had already been promised to Brian Mackay, lieutenant to the MacDonalds. For years Lachlan contested this, and finally he had had enough. If MacDonald would not give him the land, he would take it. The Clan MacLean were heading to war. Before heading off to battle, Lachlan would seek to divine the outcome and how favourable his odds were. To do this, he consulted a local wise woman. The diviner told Lachlan that no good would come from his expedition, and that he should not set foot in Islay. The concerned MacLean told the woman that he must go, that it was a matter of great importance and pivotal in increasing the clan's reputation and standing. The wearied old woman nodded slowly and said, "If you are determined to go, Lachlan Moore, then heed these warnings. Dinna land on Islay on a Thursday. dinna fight on the shores of Loch Ghruinneart, and under no circumstances take a drink for the well known as the Well of Neil MacPhee. If Lachlan followed the advice of the wise woman, his victory was assured, but heeding these warnings would not be as simple as the clan chief had first thought. Within a few days, over 800 MacLean men had gathered by the shore, ready to make the short boat trip to the land of Islay. Lachlan and his men set sail on Wednesday morning and expected to land on the shores of Islay just after midday, but the warriors were assailed by an untimely storm. Not only did this slow the crossing, but with the wild sea battering the shore, it meant that the MacLeans would have to anchor off the coast till the weather calmed. Eventually the soldiers landed on the banks of Islay on Thursday morning. Once on the island, Lachlan was met by James MacDonald, the new chief of Clan MacDonald and son of Angus MacDonald. He pleaded with Lachlan to lay down his arms and wished the pair could come to some form of agreement. He offered Lachlan half of the rins, but MacLean had not come to barter. Lachlan demanded what was rightfully his, or he would take it by force. James was not willing to hand over his birthright, so he told MacLean that the MacDonalds would meet him and his men on Traigh Ghruinneart, or shore of the loch. The name of the loch sent shivers down the spine of Lachlan, but he had come this far and did not mean to turn back now. His men marched to the banks of the loch, where they would camp that night and ready themselves for battle. During that night, a strange cloaked figure appeared in the MacLean camp. The figure was only the height of a child, but demanded to see Lachlan more, great chief of the Clan MacLean. The figure was taken to the leader's tent and shown in. It was there where the strange visitor removed his hood in front of Lachlan, and to the great surprise of the chief, he now looked upon an odd, dark-skinned man. The man was stunted and had a cold, warped face, covered with a thick, bushy beard. He introduced himself as the Dubh Sith, or Black Fairy. He claimed to be born of elf and man. He told Lachlan that he had travelled from the island of Jura to serve Clan MacLean as an archer. It was then that he produced a tiny bow and arrow. Lachlan and his men began to laugh hysterically at the miniature archer. The chief ordered that this malformed creature be taken from his sight and thrown outside the camp. The dwarven figure was heartbroken. To serve the clan of his father was his one dream in life. Now spurned and outcast from the MacLeans, the Dubh Sith's mind turned to anger. Lachlan Moore would live to regret the day that he laughed at the dark archer. Quickly, Dubh Sith gathered his bow and arrows and ran to the MacDonald camp. He was swiftly shown to the tent of James. There he told of his ungracious welcome at the hands of Lachlan, and that he now wished to pledge himself to Clan MacDonald, and as a gift, Dubh Sith promised to end the life of Lachlan Moore. The next morning, as the busy troops were forming ranks along the loch shore, Dubh Sith snuck to the centre of the battlefield and climbed a rowan tree, which stood by the well of Neil MacPhee. There the little archer hid and waited for his opportunity. The battle began on the morning of August the 5th, 1598, and beneath an unusually strong sun for that time of year, the MacLeans and the MacDonalds met in a bloody battle. The battle raged on for many an hour, but by midday the outnumbered MacDonalds began to retreat, and during this lull in the fighting, Lachlan Moore took the opportunity to quench his thirst. The chief had found a small well in the middle of the battlefield, but as MacLean removed his helmet, an expertly fletched jet black arrow shot through his right eye, killing him instantly. This was the price for scorning the Dubh Sith. Cries echoed out round the battlefield that Lachlan Moore, chief of Clan MacLean, had been killed. It was at this time the remaining MacDonalds sprung their trap. The retreat was planned, and now at the top of a shallow hill, the MacLean men were forced to fight, with their eyes blinded by the falling sun. The MacDonalds, although outnumbered, were by far the more experienced warriors, and quickly won the day. The routing MacLeans were chased back to the shores of Islay and onto their boats. The Battle of Traigh Ghruinneart was won by the warriors of Clan MacDonald and the dwarven archer, Dubh Sith. After the battle, James MacDonald sent word to the wife of Lachlan Mor, granting her safe passage to the island in order to collect the body of her husband. A cairn was raised by the well on the very spot the Black Arrow had taken MacLean's life, and his body was burned at Kilchoman Church. Still to this very day, it is unknown what became of Dubh Sith. Following the battle, the Fey being seemed to just vanish. Some say he returned to Jura, while others say he travelled to the other world and stayed in Elfheim. Whatever the case, he is now known as Dubh Sith, Master Archer of Clan MacDonald. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my patrons for helping support the videos and the channel.